Tell me if this sounds like you. You are in your 30s or your 40s. You are, by a lot of metrics, reasonably successful. But when you stop and look around at your life, you realize that you have absolutely nothing outside work. And you definitely do not have any hobbies. This is a realization I came to recently. So hello, my name is Amy. I am an indie author and I am also a millennial who does nothing but work and raise my daughter. It is spending time with my 8-year-old daughter that has really put this into relief recently. Kids are all about hobbies. We've been very careful to not overload our daughter with planned activities. So when she has time to herself, it is really obvious that she drifts from hobby to fill her time. She draws, paints, colours. She practices the piano, she reads books, she sings and dances and helps with baking. And I think if I asked her, she would say every single one of those was a hobby she enjoyed. So why do we reach this point in life where we have lost the ability to have outside interests? And why do I, who have a really nice life in so many ways, find myself at this junction where I haven't had a proper hobby in years? I think the answers really boil down to two things: time and money. We have come into the partially converted barn that we are soon going to be living in, partly because it is really hot outside and much cooler in here, but also because this building project really exemplifies what I want to talk about next. Now, I am sure I am not the only one out there who has reached their late 30s and just discovered that time is incredibly short. So my partner and I run a business. We are raising our daughter. We are working on this building project, and we have been doing this now for nearly 4 years, doing really as much as we possibly can ourselves. I also run a separate business, writing fiction. We keep animals and have a small holding to maintain. And quite frankly, there are just not enough hours in the day. Now, I think this period of your life, late 30s, 40s, and into your 50s, really is the time where this hits so many people. You often have kids, but even if you don't, there may be aging parents and other relations to look after. You may well have more than one job, especially these days, and time is just in such short supply. It is essentially a midlife crunch where everything comes together to make sure you are run off your feet. And we all know what is first to go in this scenario. It is hobbies and social life. I think more and more these days we do prioritize our physical health. So even though I am very, very busy, I do try to spend as much time exercising and taking care of myself as I can, because I have seen the benefits of that in aging family members around me. And yet we don't prioritize hobbies in the same way. And I think that's a real shame. They are so beneficial for our mental well-being. For one thing, a good hobby should lower your stress levels. It should just make you feel good. Many hobbies also have a cognitive layer, and they do actually improve your cognitive function. Others will keep you physically fit. And a lot of hobbies also have a social aspect. There have been study after study that show how incredibly important being social is to our well-being and to aging well. And yet we don't take that as seriously as, for example, going for a run or going to the gym. But I think not having enough time for hobbies is really only one part of it. So much of this equation also comes down to money. So let's talk about that big habit that a lot of us online content creators and beyond have fallen into. and that is monetizing everything. Now, I'm not going to say this is inherently a bad idea. I think having a second or multiple streams of income is a really good idea. I was unlucky enough to graduate into the aftermath of the 2008 recession when no one was hiring, and being a graduate was really a recipe for not being able to get a job at all. And let's not pretend that the economic situation is any better right now. We are all becoming more and more used to economic instability, and having those multiple side hustles and streams of income is very, very tempting. And right now, it's really sensible. But the problem is when one hobby becomes a side hustle, as I have found with my own writing, then it's very easy for all of them to become side hustles. And so we monetize everything. Now, this, I think, is a bit of a trap that multi-passionate people fall into particularly. You may have come across those videos online that tell you how to make the most of being a multi-passionate creator. Maybe you are an artist and a photographer and a musician and you code websites, whatever it may be. But the focus in these videos is always on how to bring all those different skills and interests together and how to make money from them all. Again, I'm not saying this is inherently a bad idea. We all have to make a living. And this does sound particularly interesting and enticing if you run a creative business. Suddenly, everything you learn can add to that business. So, for example, I'm an indie author. This involves writing, editing, and publishing my own books, but we all have to market. So, what started as a hobby for me, making book videos on YouTube, quickly became something that I thought might be a business venture. I've recently had a go at painting, and quite honestly, one of my first thoughts when I started it was maybe I can learn to get good enough at this to make my own book covers. I could use graphic design to make my own website, to make marketing materials for my books. I can use photography to grow a following on Instagram, to advertise my books and make product photography. I have even considered having a go at making my own music. Again, focused on my books and the worlds I am creating. And this sounds like loads of fun. I'm not saying I will never do that, but you do reach this point where every single thing you are doing is to make money. It is to further your business, it is to sell products, and that takes over your entire life. So let's talk about the second half of the money equation, and that is that we have been taught that our time has financial value. Time is money. How many times have you heard that? And I think as individuals these days, we are rapidly being turned into both a product and a consumer of products. Whether you work in a typical corporate environment or run your own business, work does have a tendency to eat up all of your time until there's not very much left. But on the other hand, our personal information is being constantly harvested and mined by the companies that provide products to us. So not only are we going out to earn a living and make companies more money, but then at home in our leisure time when we are scrolling online, we are making different companies more money again. We are essentially producing for big business pretty much all of the time, and it's quite hard to escape that. So you might think, I will go out and choose a hobby where no one is making any money off me. Let's say you want to go for a walk. Great idea. Walking is actually one of my hobbies. I love hiking, except is it a hobby? First of all, it's very easy to look online and see how much gear you need to walk properly. We need the waterproofs, the walking boots, the base layers, maybe a really nice expensive merino base layer. We need a water bottle, we need a rucksack, maybe we need a GPS, walking poles, maps, and maybe a map subscription. don't want to get lost. And then, of course, once we have accumulated all this gear, then we have to travel to a scenic location so that we can hike somewhere worth hiking. And when we get to the top, obviously, we have to take a picture of ourselves, which we will then post on social media. And now that we've done that, we've spent a huge amount of money on all this equipment, and we've started getting a bit of attention for posting about it online. Maybe at the end of the day, we should monetize walking too. We've invested so much in it that we need to make something back. And this is the trap we fall into with so many things. We are sold to again and again, told all these things that we apparently need for our hobbies, and then we turn around and turn those hobbies into another side hustle. It is an endless loop and it's really hard to break out of. So let's talk next about what I personally am doing to break out of this trap. Now, the first step I have taken is actually a really practical one, and that is I have revamped the business plan for my creative writing business. That maybe sounds a little bit stale, and you might be wondering what on earth it has to do with hobbies. But I found this a really important step. Without the business plan, every single new interest that came across my path was potentially there to be monetized, to add to the writing business, to be another string to my bow. With the business plan though, I have a very clear idea of what I'm doing. And that means I also have a clear idea of what skills I need. Anything else that I come across that I want to try can be automatically excluded as being part of the business because it's not on the plan. And to be honest, that has already made a huge difference to me. The other thing I've been trying is picking up some of the interests that my daughter has. Now, I said at the start of this video that my daughter does loads of different things, and if you asked her whether they were hobbies, she would say absolutely, and she loves them all equally. In that vein, I have been trying my hand at watercolour painting, which is something I have absolutely no experience with. First of all, I did these mushrooms. These were copied out of a natural history book that we have, and in the same vein, I've also done some flowers. I have to admit here that though the flowers are very recent, I think the mushrooms I actually painted about 8 or 9 months ago. So this maybe is a new hobby, but it's been a bit of a slow burn one. But what I've really been trying is when my daughter, for example, wants to paint, I don't immediately use that as an opportunity to work. Instead, I will pick up something hobby related myself to accompany her. That is the reason I did the most recent watercolour painting. We had been on a walk and she had been talking for most of the walk about how she wanted to paint a flower when we got home. So when she sat down to do that, I did the same, and it was really restorative, I have to say. It really was a great reminder to me of why hobbies are so important. I don't think my mind had been that empty and calm for the entirety of the preceding week. Next up, I have been largely getting off social media. Now, this for me is not actually about the peer pressure aspect. I was not a huge user of social media anyway, so just because I saw someone doing something on Instagram did not mean that I wanted to rush out and do it too. But I talked about that example of walking, buying all the gear, investing so much in it that you then feel you have to monetize the hobby. And that is an example from my own life. I did last year have quite a big TikTok account that I was growing with hiking and outdoor footage. I did genuinely feel at one point that it was going to be another business that I was going to run, but I did eventually kind of burn out on that idea, and I'm quite glad that I did. I don't really need another business. I did not need to monetize a TikTok. But also it has been really nice to finally accept that when I am going out for a walk, I am just going out for a walk. It is just for me to feel good, to get some exercise, to enjoy the experience. And there is an added bonus here, which I don't know if I should take as much pleasure in it as I do, but when I am walking, I am not making any money for any big businesses. I'm not posting about it online. I'm not buying anything. If I do buy anything, it will be, for example, a coffee from a small business. But taking up a hobby that requires so little does sometimes feel like you are sticking a middle finger up at our corporate overlords. And I can definitely get behind that. And finally, I am definitely going to try something new. In this case, it's something that should be familiar to me and in some ways is, but I also find a little bit embarrassing, which is why I'm telling you about it. I am going to have a go at writing poetry. Now, this should not be embarrassing. I am a writer. I publish my work all the time, but poetry is really foreign to me. I don't know much about writing it. I don't read a huge amount of it, but it requires really no investment apart from notebooks and pens that I already own and my time and thought, and that really appeals to me. So I'm going to be challenging myself to give that a go, even if it is a bit cringy to be taking up poetry at this time in my life. I am not an angsty teenager anymore. I have no experience with poetry. I just want to try it. So here we are at the end of the video. Thank you very much for joining me. I would love it if in the comments below you let me know what hobbies you have, because I am actively on the lookout for new things to try, and I'm sure there are so many activities that I have not even considered. Bonus points if they don't require much equipment and have a fairly gentle learning curve. But I would also like to hear from you if you have also fallen into this trap. You have reached a point in your life where everything really revolves around work and family, and there just isn't much space left for you. If you are also in that position, please let me know how you are going to try and fix it, because I think we should all be on a mission to become more rounded and healthier individuals. Keep creating, everyone, and I will see you next time.